we are again for another discussion on how we can be more inclusive to children with special needs. And today I really want to talk about working with younger kids who have autism. That's something that we see a lot of in our clinic, where they're either newly diagnosed or they're just little kids who have not had a lot of exposure playing with other children, being with people outside of their home, and trying to figure out strategies for engaging them. So we're going to talk to Michele today, who is an instructor in our autism program, where they work with children between the ages of 0 and 3 and really helping them learn how to play and interact with others. So welcome.
Hi.
So I'm wondering, what is a good way, just starting out, so your first time meeting a child, they're coming to the environment for the first time, they might be a little bit anxious or a little aloof. Do you have any strategies that you find are consistently helpful for those kids?
Yeah, the first thing that I do when I work with kids with special needs, I tend to focus on the relationship and build the trust first. And that really involves following the child's lead and seeing what they're interested in. So I throw my agenda out the window. I throw what my expectations are out the window, and I just want to see what they like. So if we have, toys around the classroom, I just want to see what they go to and what they play with, how they play with the toys, and really just observe what they like first before I really, jump in and work with them.
Yeah, I love that. There's a saying with kids, but I think it applies to all relationships, that you have to connect before you can direct. And I think we forget that connection piece, and we just want to go straight to telling kids what to do. But especially for kids on the spectrum, it's so important to connect to them. Are there toys that you find or activities that a lot of kids with autism tend to like?
Yeah, so in my experience working with kids with autism, a lot of kids really like cars. That's a really popular one with boys. They like to watch the wheels spin, and that's very stimulating to them. A lot of kids really like balls, puzzles, letters, numbers. That tends to be a hit with a large majority of the kids I've worked with.
So those are good activities to have at the ready.
Yes.
And then, so you're watching the child and they're approaching, let's say they're approaching the cars, and they're going to the cars and they're watching the wheels spin. What do you do next?
Yeah, so then I want to join them in their world. So their play is unique to them, and that is, satisfying to them. So even if it doesn't, feel like play to us, we want to join into their world so they feel like we're trying to make a connection with them. So if the child is turning the car upside down and spinning the wheels, and I'm going to take my own car and I'm going to turn it upside down and spin the wheel next to them. So that is my way of joining their world to start to build that connection with them.
Yeah, I think that when we see kids playing in a way that's different than what we expect, we think it's not play because it looks a little weird, but you're so right. To them, it's play. And so who are we to say what's play and what's not? Maybe
Right.
I love to ride my bike, but you hate riding a bike. Everybody has their own preferences, and all preferences are okay. It's just a matter of figuring out how to connect with the child. And then once you've made that connection where they notice you're there, they're looking at your car too, maybe they're showing you their car. What's the next step?
Then once you've gotten their attention, then you really want to use your affect, which is kind of your ability to, use to express. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, like to express. It's like your expression. It's your playfulness.
Yeah, you want to get
your voice, the tone of voice.
Yeah, so now you want to really use your playfulness to your advantage to draw the child in and get that engagement with that child. So let's say they realize, oh, this person next to me is also spinning wheels. Then you can start to make some sound effects in a really playful way. Or then you could start to, model different things you can do with the car and see how the child responds. If the child is very interested in you, they want to be interested in what you're doing. And that's a really good building block for learning from you.
Yeah, so you have to establish that connection, and you have have to establish that, like, I like you feeling if you want to teach them anything, because they're not just naturally going to say, teach me. You're having to bridge that gap. And then once you get their attention, then they're in a position where you can teach them something new, like, oh, look, the car can go down the ramp or something like that. So it sounds like connection first, and then trying to bridge them into the next step of play with what they're doing. And I'm curious. So, do all children love loud voices and big reactions and sound effects, or how do kids respond?
Every child is different. Each child has sensory preferences. So some kids will respond really well to high energy, loud, very playful energy. But for some kids, that makes them really anxious, and they need someone to who's really calm and takes things slow. So in that way, you would also have to read the child and see how they respond. And if you find that you're giving really high energy playfulness and they start to withdraw, then I would recommend modifying your energy to bring it down to their level.
Yeah, emotions are contagious in a lot of people. And so if you want them to connect with you, you really need to match their emotion level. So sometimes like if they're a high-strung kid, then you can be high-strung to meet them and then slowly draw back a little bit to try to bring them down to a place where they're able to learn better. Or if they're really quiet and reserved, if you go in loud and crazy, it's going to be intimidating. But if you go in quiet and reserved and just share space with them, then you can slowly ramp them up a little bit so they're in a better place for learning. So trying to like match their activity level and their volume, how much they're moving, how much expression they're using, and then bridge them into that just right level for learning.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And then any tips that you have if you have a child that is just on the perimeter of the group, doesn't really, is maybe looking at the group, is interested in the group, but isn't really joining the group. Any thoughts on how you might be able to bridge them over to that?
What we typically do is, typically the kids will find something that they like. So while they're kind of like shopping around in the perimeter and looking for things to do, once they do find that toy that they really like, then we'll bring it into, the center of the room where the other kids are and see if that will draw them into the group.
So you use the preferred object to kind of entice them.
We do. That's what we try to do. And if not, then we will use ourselves, and see how they respond to different types of sensory input. So that might be like picking them up and giving them jumps up and down, or giving them squishes, deep pressure, things like that, to see if that helps engage them. So we trial different things to see what the child responds to, and then we build off of that.
Yeah. So it sounds like, in summary, the goal should be to first focus on connection with the child, finding what they like and imitating what they're doing, and then bridging them over into either learning new play skills or joining a peer group. And doing that by using what they like, but then also by using your own energy level and your own interaction with them to kind of entice them in to interaction with you and others.
Yes.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.